I've used a lot of meal services, but Hungry Root truly stands out because it's built around the way real families live and eat. They don't just send meal kits. They personalize your grocery cart and meal plan based on your preferences and dietary goals. All I had to do was take a short quiz, and right away, their smart cart technology started building a cart that fit how we eat. Now, each week feels easier, like someone else is doing the thinking for me. I've been focused on cleaner eating lately, and I love that Hungry Root keeps out over 200 additives, including things like high fructose corn syrup and artificial sweeteners. Their meats are hormone and antibiotic free, and the produce options include organic and non GMO picks. They also stock brands I already trust, like Oatly, Vital Farms, and Harmless Harvest. One of our favorite meals has been the teriyaki salmon with green beans, light, flavorful, and done in 12 minutes flat. Plus, I've noticed we waste less food, spend less time shopping, and even save money by skipping those impulse grocery buys. Take advantage of this exclusive offer. For a limited time, get 40% off your first box, plus get a free item in every box for life. Go to hungryroot.com/Dr. Meg and use code Dr. Meg. That's hungryroot.com/Dr. Meg. Code Dr. Meg to get 40% off your first box and a free item of your choice for life. hungryroot.com/Dr. Meg. Code Dr. Meg.
On today's episode of Parenting Great Kids.
Raising teens isn't easy.
I'm thinking of one client in particular who came in and had this pattern of losing the friendships out of the groups, over and over. And I said, let's look at it. Let's see if there's something that you're doing.
This is Parenting Great Kids with Dr. Meg Meeker.
Today, my guest is Sheri Gazitt, founder of TeenWise, an organization dedicated to supporting teens, tweens, and parents through the ups and downs of adolescence. Sheri, thanks so much for joining me today.
I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me. I can't wait to dive in.
Teens are fun. I like teens. I know you like teens, but a lot of parents and teachers just don't like teenagers. When you hear somebody talking about a teenager, chances are that you're going to hear a lot of negative talk. And I personally don't like that. But a lot of parents worry about their teenagers. They're worried that they're going to pull away from them. So before that happens, how can parents foster a strong connection with their teens?
Well, one of the things we have to keep in mind is that our relationship with our teens is constantly changing. So we have to adapt to that and create almost every day a new relationship with this human being that's in front of us, because they're different and they're changing dramatically from week to week. So we have to keep that in mind. The other piece is that we have to, as they get older, we have to look at parenting as a collaboration versus control. And when our kids feel that collaboration, then they really want to stay connected so they can get support, so they can talk about things. It's the control that really pushes them away.
Yeah. Well, of course, teens are still teens and they're not their brain isn't fully developed. So how do parents navigate that, letting them make choices and take some control, and also setting strong boundaries with them? That's a hard tension. How do you recommend navigating that?
Well, we have to look at what can we safely hand over to them and give them responsibility for. One of the things I think right now that's happening as safety is we think of that as they can never get into trouble or make any poor choices. That's not really safety. Safety, we're talking about, can they physically be okay and emotionally be okay? We need to give them opportunities to fail, to make choices that are not so great within parameters, right? We don't just say, okay, you're a teen, I'm not going to give you any boundaries anymore. It's just those boundaries gradually get open. And if the boundaries are crossed or there's some really poor decisions made, then we kind of bring those boundaries back a little bit.
Yeah. Do you find in general, and I know this is just very, very general, parents tend to give too many rules and be over controlling, or too few rules and not interested at all?
Yeah. So one thing that I see is parents will kind of go along in one camp or the other that you just described. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, this isn't working. If let's say they gave too many rules, then they just throw their arms up and like, okay, never mind. I'm not going to give any rules. So they kind of flip
Oh.
down to the other camp because they're frustrated. They don't know what else to do. And then the ones who aren't giving any rules, major poor decisions are made. And then they're like, okay, now we got to control everything. We have
Mhm.
to be in that middle road where, again, it's that collaboration. As they make mistakes, they know that they're unconditionally loved, unconditionally supported, and we can still point out that was not a great decision.
Mhm.
And there's probably some consequences that need to be given.
Yeah. Um, so let's talk about some of the biggest struggles that teenagers face that parents need to dive in and help them with. What do you see as the biggest struggles they face?
Well, right now, one of the really big struggles I see is loneliness. And this is not just for teens, this is really for Americans. There's a lot of stuff that's happened. COVID is one of them that we really have disconnected with each other. If you think about COVID, it was like that was the thing to do. You needed to disconnect and not see people. So that was an issue. Loneliness was an issue before that, but this just was a curveball we were thrown. Now we have these kids who were in this isolation period and they are still feeling lonely. And a big piece of it is as they've come out of COVID and out of the disconnection phase, is they don't know how to reconnect in a way that is a deep, meaningful connection. So they might even have a big group of friends, but they don't feel connected.
Right. And that big group of quote unquote friends might be on the internet, social media, and so on and so forth. I
Mhm.
think that's an excellent point because a lot of people are saying, why are kids anxious? Why are they depressed? And a lot of what I believe is at the root of it is exactly what you're talking about, the sort of isolation. They feel, yeah, they're more connected than ever, but they're really not connected. So
Mhm.
how can parents help their kids find connection in a healthy way?
Mhm. I think we've got to talk about it for one, as they're having friendships. Well, I see kind of a few different things. One is that the kids are like, I don't care if I have friends.
Mhm.
They say they're okay without them, lots of hours in their room, online a lot, not necessarily connecting with people online, but just online playing games or whatever they may be doing. And so the kids who are doing that, like they've kind of given up on the social piece, we have to show how important it is. We can't do that through lectures. We have to do it through role modeling and through supporting them as they go out and explore the world.
Mhm.
So we can't just say, go talk to somebody and make a friend.
Yeah, yeah.
It's giving the
I wouldn't like
opportunity.
it if they said that to me. I'm like, "No."
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
no.
would it would I wish it was that easy to just go talk to someone, but
Yeah.
there is a lot of rejection when you're going out there to make friends. But we can do that by saying, "What are you interested in? Let's get you signed up for something you can try with no pressure." Not
Mhm.
even mentioning the friendship piece of it.
Yeah.
Just giving them those connection opportunities.
That's great advice too, because kids want connection and friendship with other kids who have like interests. And so
Yes.
if you put them someplace or they, have mutual enjoyment, they're more likely to find a friend. You talk a lot about friendship conflicts, particularly with girls.
Yep.
I see this and I'm just like want to pull my hair out. Let's talk about the most frequent friendship struggles that girls encounter and when do they start and when do they end if they end?
They start very young, even in preschool, you can see these kind of conflicts because when we're creating friendships, these are deep, right? These are things that we're connecting with people. So there's going to be conflict and there's going to be insecurities. When they start to get in later elementary school and especially middle school, as their brain remodels, they're able to think about things in a different way. That's when the girl drama, the friendship issues start to escalate because they can see how they fit into the world around them.
Mhm.
And there's this surge of oxytocin that says you need to bond with people. That bonding is not with parents, it's with other people.
Mhm.
So when there's a void in that friendship arena, a lot of things start to happen. The gossiping, the rumors, trying to tear people down so that you can have the connection with this person. It's not because they're evil masterminds. It's because they are learning and because they don't know what to do, and the friendships are so important.
Right. Is there jealousy? Is that why some girls you'll see 3 or 4 girls have a
Mhm.
5th friend and they go along and they're all friends. And then all of a sudden the 5th girl is out and
Yes.
she doesn't know what to do and mom is beside herself. And why does that happen? And what do you do when that happens?
Especially when you're talking about groups of friends, what will happen is they have their friendship as a group, and
Mhm.
then they have the one-to-one friendships. So many times the odd girl out, the one that gets left out of that group, hasn't created deeper connections with people one-to-one in that group. And so
Okay.
that's why they kind of end up excluded. And then what can happen is as that girl starts to feel them pulling away, then there's some girl drama that happens, some really negative behaviors because they're just trying desperately to stay part of that group.
Right. Right. So if you have a group of 5 girls, are you saying that 2 of or 3 of those have found a deeper connection, and the person that hasn't found it is the one who's always gonna get booted? Or are they all having sort of superficial friendships?
It depends on the group. Every group is different, but most of the time, what you described first is true, that there's one-to-one friendships that got deeper, and the person who's on the outskirts did not deepen those friendships. So
Okay.
that's quite often what happens, especially when you've got 3 girls as well. The triangular friendship is a very difficult one, because everybody's trying to create that connection, but yeah, it's not always something that the girl's done either. Sometimes you just connect more with one person.
Mhm.
That's how we are as human beings. We've got this energy that is exchanged between 2 people, and sometimes it's just stronger between 2 people.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I often it's funny, we'll have a teenager in my office, and the parent usually brings up the girl drama.
Mhm,
Because the girl may not wanna talk about and I hear this kind of scenario, they're good kids, my daughter's a good kid, they were friends for a year, and then they came to a different grade, they started 7th grade, and this friend
mhm,
group wouldn't have anything to do with her,
yeah.
and I don't know what to say. What would you say?
First of all, I would normalize it. There's so many friendships that started in kindergarten, and then they
Mhm,
get to middle school and their friendship dissipates. It's because the girls are changing. They're
mhm.
not the same as they were all of those years, and their interests really start to change. So, what I would say to a parent is to support the daughter through those feelings. Because many
Oh,
times what will happen is the parent wants to control the situation and make sure that they stay friends or that they fix that friendship.
or call the mother of
Yes,
the other
yes.
girls. They do that.
Yeah.
I've seen that. Invite her to your birthday party. I'm like, "You can't do that."
Yeah, I
Yeah,
highly in middle school, no. Elementary, you can maybe get away with that, but middle school, what happens is the mom tells the daughter, "Oh, they called and they're saying I have to invite her," and then that gets talked about amongst the girls, and it actually decreases her social standing.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So if girls sort of boot one girl from the friend group, so as a parent, you would say, "Okay, let's try to find you something that you enjoy to find other friends." Do you encourage them to find other friends in that same classroom that maybe they've connected with? And are those friendships hard to start up?
Mhm. This is what's difficult in the teen years. If we're adults, we might say, "Okay, I'm gonna go elsewhere to find my friends."
Mhm,
When you're a kid and you're in school, that is the social pool that you are pulling from.
mhm,
You can go online and make friends that way. You can have extracurriculars, but you really should look for connections within the places that you are on a regular basis.
mhm,
However, what I would say is sometimes your school setting you have connections and you have acquaintances, those don't have to be your closest friends. But you
okay,
don't want a girl going to school feeling invisible
mhm.
and feeling isolated all day. So connections are good, but you don't have to make them make friends or even push that. They can get those friends elsewhere.
Yeah, and I have seen that happen where girls will have a strong friendship or 2 outside of their own school.
Mhm.
Maybe
Yep.
they made a couple years, before. But if you have a girl I'm thinking of girl I saw fairly recently, lovely girl, had a lot of friends, and then it seems that all of her friend groups outside of school, inside of school, just sort of dissolved. Now, this is the parents' take on it. And they'll say she just doesn't have any friends and she's down in the dumps and discouraged. And, I just kind of don't know what to do. So are you recommending that a parent would sort of say, this is just a part of life and this is okay? But a lot of girls are really, depressed about this.
Yeah.
If that girl came into your office to talk to you and she said, I have no friends, I'm lost, I've lost them all, where would you start in talking with her?
The first thing I say, because I get that a lot, right? They come in and they're kind of slumped over, the sparkle is gone from their eyes, is I say, okay, we're going to work on this. We're going to figure out what you want next and how you can get there. So there's no, oh, woe is you, poor you, I can't believe that. There's no, okay, let's fix this right now. It's recognizing where they are. When we say it's a part of life and this just happens and it's okay, things will work out, they take that as minimizing it. And they're like, you don't get it, right? For teen girls, the social scene is their life, right? That's
Exactly.
the
Yeah.
most important thing. So we have to give them that space to feel all the feelings and to know there's something we can do about it, though.
I want you to know that I am so excited to be offering the PGK Insider. This is a place that I really want you to participate because we have a community here, and that is that we are all together. We're not doing this parenting journey all by ourselves. Just go to my website, meekerparenting.com, and sign up today. You won't be sorry. You know that moment when your child lights up because something finally clicks? That's what every parent wants, to see their child thrive. But when school just isn't the right fit, that joy can fade. That's why I want to tell you about K-12 powered schools. These are tuition-free, accredited online public schools for kindergarten through 12th grade. They're designed to meet your child where they are, so they can learn at their own pace, in their own space, and a curriculum that fits their unique learning style. And here's what sets it apart. This isn't homeschooling. You're not the teacher. K-12's state-certified online educators are trained to make lessons interactive and engaging using innovative technology. And your child still gets social experiences, clubs, extracurriculars, even in-person events. K-12 has helped over 3 million families give their kids the tools to thrive, and they've been doing it for more than 25 years. It could be exactly what your child needs. Visit k12.com/Dr. Meg to find a tuition-free K-12 powered school near you and enroll today. That's k12./DRMEG, all caps.
This pattern of losing the friendships out of the groups, over and over. And I said, let's look at it. Let's see if there's something that you're doing. Let's look at the tiny details and figure it out. Not that you've done anything wrong, but there may be some little thing that's happening that is creating this shift in the friendships. And we found something, and she was able to change it, and that changed her friendships. She was just needing constant validation from her friends that everything was good and they liked her and all of that. When she changed that, she felt in control, and the other people that on the other side of the friendship, they felt the shift as well.
So what you're saying is, and I can see this working itself out, if girls are in a group and one girl sort of communicates that she needs something from them, she needs their acceptance, she needs their praise, I could see how that would really push friends away. Do you see? Is that what you're describing?
Yeah, that's one of the things. It's when sometimes I refer to it as the pick me girl. It's a little bit different, but it's the constant, hey, look at me, I'm different, I'm better. Sometimes girls will do that when they're trying to solidify their place in the group. Um, the other thing that can happen is that it just becomes a burden to have to constantly tell this person, yes, I like you. yes, I like you.
Right.
Yes, I like you. Yeah, over and over.
Yeah.
And it shows a lack of trust in the friendship too.
Hmm. So if you had a girl who was doing that, I assume you would sit down and say, you really don't need to be doing that. Let's find other ways to feel kind of good about yourself. How do boys factor into adolescent girl friendships?
Mhm.
Positive, negative? Does it depend?
It depends on the situation, and, as you've probably seen, there's a big shift right now in sexuality for teens, so, I wouldn't say anymore it's like the boys create jealousy, it's all over the place. It can
Hmm.
be, with the girls' interests and such. The one thing that I do see with boys is that sometimes girls will be like, "I'm done with the girl drama," so they just start gravitating towards boys for those friendships and those connections, and sometimes that connection becomes sexual, it becomes intimate because that's an easy way to bring that person in and to feel connected.
Hmm.
Yeah, so it's not like it used to be where, uh, girls were interested in the same boys, there was lots of jealousy. Well, that's all over the board now.
Hmm. Um, what I have seen, and I don't know how common it is, but I have seen that when a teenage girl sort of steps out of the group and is attaching herself to a boyfriend or somebody and
Mhm,
developing that relationship, she tends to leave the girlfriends behind and spend more time with the other person than with her girlfriends. And
mhm,
I have tried to sort of talk to girls and say, try not to isolate with this person, try to stay connected with your
mhm.
friends. But in general, what I've seen is that girls have a hard time doing that.
Yeah, and it's so unhealthy because as we know, most people are not gonna meet their lifetime partner in middle school and high
Yeah.
school, right? So what happens is if they do that and then the group says, "Forget it, we're not friends anymore," that's that girl's social connection. So she doesn't wanna break off that relationship, even if it's not so great, because she now sees herself as not having another group to turn to.
Right. Right. And also, yeah, and also sometimes that the other person can pull the partner's time and energy away and become jealous of the friend group. I've seen that
Yes.
too, where they say, they dominate their time and sort of
Mhm,
help them or, get them to leave very, very little bit of time for their friends. Let's talk about social media. And we know that social media is a big thing now with
mhm.
self worth and girls in particular. How much does social media play into friendships for good or for bad?
Yeah, so social media, one of the things that's happened is it creates the social world is going on 24/7. It
Hmm.
used to be back before social media and even just cell phones that when you got home from school, you could take a break from all the social stuff going on. But now it's going on 24/7 because there are some girls who are on their phones in the middle of the night
Right.
and texting and all of that group texting. So it has exacerbated it because there's not a release. So it keeps these girls in a fight or flight state for
Hmm.
much longer, much bigger parts of the day. That's one really big issue. The other is that before social media, you might not have known if people went to the mall without you or if you weren't invited to a birthday party. Now, it's in your face,
Yeah.
and everybody knows that you're not in that picture with everybody else.
Right.
So it's very public, the things that are going on. It's just really exacerbated it.
So, how does that affect a girl's sense of self and her sense of
Mhm.
self worth?
It's a constant questioning. So if they see they weren't invited to something, it starts the spiraled thinking. I wasn't invited. Why wasn't I invited? They don't like me. They think I'm annoying. Oh, I remember that time she gave me that look. So it just continues to spiral and spiral. It increases anxiety. It increases the feeling of helplessness and hopelessness, which is depression. So
Hmm.
it just ramps up everything. And it really is just in your face, and it's really difficult because we can't say to girls these days, "Just don't be on it."
Hmm.
We can, push out when they get started on social media, but
Hmm.
it's a way that they do stay connected, so we can't just take it out of the equation, we gotta figure it out.
How can parent relationships and communication and bonding um, offset some of that social media stuff?
Yeah, that's a tough one. Our kids have to feel secure in who they are.
Hmm.
That's really difficult. We can't, as parents, control that. We can't make that happen. What we can do is unconditionally love them. And most important is when they mess up, when they make some big mistakes, or when they're in the midst of girl drama or they don't have any friends, is that we connect with them and we're not constantly talking about the issues.
Hmm.
Very loving, well-meaning parents will oftentimes, when their kids get home from school, the first thing they ask is, "Well, how did so and so treat you today?" or "What happened in the lunchroom?" And so the relationship, the parent-teen relationship, becomes all about the girl drama and friendship issues, or all about the social media. That it's this constant buzz. So if we can step back from all the stuff, connect with our kids on a level that has nothing to do with all the stuff going on, that can ground them better emotionally and make them feel connected.
So, how important is it for parents to do things with their kids that don't involve school, or take them on trips, or take them camping, or take them shopping, or something like that? Because on one hand, I hear you saying, well, kids don't really want to be with parents that much. They want to be with their friends. And yet it seems to me that that parent connection, helps balance some of the girl drama.
Yeah, it's kind of a myth that they don't want to spend time with their parents. Teens want to spend time with their parents, just not as much time with their parents.
Hmm.
And so what happens quite frequently is when teens come out of their bedroom, the connection is, did you do your chores? Do you have any homework? All of those things. And then they're like, retreat, retreat. I'm going to go back to my room because I don't want to talk about these things.
Hmm.
We have to connect with our kids and talk about the things that they love. So if they're into anime, if they're on TikTok, if they're, whatever it is they're doing, do your research. Find out more about it. Ask them about it. Take the time to sit down and watch a TikTok or two with them, watch some anime, whatever singer they're into. Do the things that they love.
Hmm.
And
And meet
that's
them
how you
there. Yeah.
train.
Yeah. Even if you don't like the things they
Yep.
do, what I have found is get in there anyway and then just start asking them questions.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
I think one of the biggest mistakes, I'd love to hear your take on it, is that often parents, and sometimes teachers will do it too, is they use a tone of voice when talking to teenagers as if they're just waiting for that kid to screw up. So they
Mhm.
better not this and they better not that because it's just a matter of time. Talk about tone of voice that parents need to use
Yeah.
when talking with their kids.
Yeah, there's tone of voice. There's also our word choice. What are the questions we're asking? And if you're looking for them to mess up, you're going to only notice those things. You're not going to be praising them for the amazing choices they made or the effort they put into things. We have to check our filters. What filters are we looking at our kids through? Because if we're constantly waiting for that next mess up, our kids feel that. They know that.
Mhm.
They're like, "That's what my parents expect of me, that I just mess things up." And, our kids live up to our expectations quite often. Sometimes we're like, "Okay, I want a kid with all A's," but what are the messages that we're conveying through our tone, through
Mhm.
our words?
Yeah.
Yeah, we want our kids to feel the love, not feel the condescending voice.
Well, we tend to do it as parents without even thinking about this,
Mhm.
that this is a little bit of a curveball and you don't need to answer it if you don't want. But what about how much does a parent's history of being a teen themselves
Mhm.
affect their parenting of their own teen?
Yeah, this is not a curveball at all. When I work with teens, I work with the parents too for
Yeah.
this specific reason. We all carry a backpack around with us, and our backpack is filled with stories and filled with emotions connected to those stories. So when our kids hit middle school and let's say they're going through some friendship issues, our brain subconsciously most of the time is picking through that backpack. What do we know? What are the patterns? And so if our daughter comes home and says, Amy was mean to me, then we might pick out of our backpack, oh, I was bullied as a teen.
Mhm.
Amy's a horrible kid. Don't talk to her anymore. You need to ditch that friendship.
Mm.
So it absolutely affects how we emotionally feel what our kids are going through. And then it affects the choices that we're making on how to support them.
So if a parent had a pretty rough childhood, particularly during the teen years, and didn't have much connection with parents, or parents were sort of, not involved at all, how do they begin parenting their teenager? Because, their teen years were just a mess. And so there's
Mhm.
sort of looking maybe at their teenager going, well, mine was a mess and you remind me of me. So yours is a mess and I don't know what to do. How does a parent start to say, okay, I want your years to be better than mine, but
Mhm.
also break the patterns and the memories that they had, I guess, as a
Yeah.
teen?
We have to do a little bit of work. We have to, as parents, we've got to dig through that messy stuff and clean out our backpack. If you've ever seen a backpack that was left at the end of the school year and you didn't get to it like till 2 months later, it's gross, right? It's got mold, it's
Yeah.
got
So were you saying we're moldy people, basically? Yeah.
Yes, yes, we gotta look at our mold and clean it up once in a while, right? Because
Yeah.
if we don't do that, we're reacting to everything our kids are going through, and we want to respond. So we can, as we're picking through all that stuff in our backpack, think about, "What did I need and want in that moment?
Mhm.
I had a messy childhood. I wish my parents would have supported me in this way. That's what I wanna bring to the table."
Mhm. So um, they can rewrite the script for their kids, even though they couldn't have. But I think that's great to sort of put themselves back in their kids' shoes at that age. What was it like for me when I was 14? What did I really want that my parents didn't give me? And then to be able to have the courage and the strength to say, okay, I'm going to give it to my kid, because that's a really hard thing to do. Let's talk about kids who really go off the rails. I mean, they're
Mhm,
running away from home. They're in drugs. They don't want anything to do with their parents. Really, really hurting kids.
mhm,
Where is a parent to start getting through to that child?
mhm. That is out of my scope of expertise. However, I will tell you that it comes back to the connection. Like, you
Mhm,
need to get support for yourself as a parent. If your
mhm,
kids are doing these, they're way outside the guardrails, right? You
mhm,
need to get support for your kids. And sometimes the kids don't want it, but you have to insist. And you do that in a way that's collaborative. You still are saying you have to do this, but it's still collaborative, saying, let's find someone together. Here's the
mhm.
choices that you have. So you can't just say it's gonna get better, and you can't just give up. It would be great if we could quit our role as a parent until things got better. We can't do that. We're
Yeah,
there for the messy stuff too.
right.
And we also have to emotionally, when our kids are going through that, we have to come with calm to
Mm,
say, "This is big, but we can handle this. I can handle this. We can do this together. It's not, the end of the world. We're gonna figure this out."
mhm. Yeah, I love that. And, to sort of communicate to your teen that I'm your ally.
Yeah.
We're linked arms, and this is a horrible situation. And I know that you're feeling lost or lonely or despondent, whatever, but we can do this together. We only have a couple of minutes left, and there's a bunch of questions I want to ask. But following up on what we were just talking about, if parents and kids or if a parent just kind of lost trust in their kids, say they thought everything was going along well, and then all of a sudden the parent finds out the kid's been using drugs and,
Mhm.
or not going to school when the kid said, I'm going to school every day. And they learned, oh, they haven't been to school in 2 months. And that trust is broken. So, how does a parent help their child rebuild mutual trust?
Mhm. One of the things that I've seen happen when there's some really poor choices being made is the parents withdraw love and step in with control. It comes from a place of fear.
Mhm,
And so we have to go in with that love and connection.
mhm,
If they aren't going to school, instead of saying, "Why aren't you going to school? You're gonna be grounded now for 3 weeks." Say, "What's going on with that?
mhm,
Why are you avoiding school? Is something happening at school? Let's talk about this." So
mhm,
connect and talk, and then you talk about what are we gonna do about it.
mhm,
But you have to start, and when you're communicating with anybody in a conversation, you start where they are. We as parents often want to start with the fix it. What do we need to do? With our teens who live in a constant emotional state, we have to start the conversation with the emotional piece of it. What's going on? How can I support you?
It's so hard. Now, I don't have teenagers in the home. My kids are grown. But I can see parents saying, oh, this is terrible. Why are you doing it? Now your future's ruined. This is just a horrible thing. You don't have friends anymore. And they kind of panic.
Yep.
And then they feel like they don't have the tools to deal with it. And then finally, they feel that they don't have enough time. And time is a big issue with parents because what you're talking about doing requires time. It requires being in the same room with your kid and talking to them face to face. And I think how much of the relationship, or wait, how do I want to say this? How much of a healthy relationship with a child does time with your teen matter?
Yeah. So how much does time matter really is what
Exactly.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be a lot of time. It has to be quality time. How you're spending time. It goes back to when they come out of their room. Are you talking about chores and grades and all of that? Or are you talking about how are they doing? What are they interested in? That is what makes you feel connected. If you think about like 5-10 years from now, the kids are going to come back to you and want to talk to you because you're talking to them about things they're interested in, not because you're checking on their grades every day. Those conversations they run away from.
You're interested? Go ahead. Sorry.
I just say when they feel connected to you, they want to talk to you. And so we have to connect with them in a way that feels good for them.
And to let them know that, we value the person, not the stuff they do. But we tend to talk about all the stuff they do because that's what all our friends are doing. And it makes us feel like a better parent if our kids are doing a lot of stuff. My guest has been Sheri Gazitt. She is founder of TeenWise. It's an organization that supports teens and tweens and also parents who need a tremendous amount because teens don't live in isolation. Sheri, how can people find you? How can they learn about TeenWise, get connected with your organization?
Yeah, I would say my website is a good place to start. It's teen-wise.com. And then from there, you'll see the other resources. The most active way is to head to my Facebook group, and we'll make sure we have the link there. That's where there's constant trainings and conversations going on.
And are your trainings for the kids or for the parents?
They're for the parents. The private coaching that I do is for the kids. And we talk about beliefs and limiting beliefs, I should say. We talk about identity. We talk about confidence, emotional resilience, and interpersonal skills. We really dive into helping them up-level their lives.
Yeah, you get into the nitty-gritty. I love it.
Yes.
Kids need somebody to go there with them. Sheri, this has been so informative and really fun. I really appreciate you coming and joining me today. And I would strongly recommend that parents, if you have any concerns about your teen or wondering how to navigate certain things like girls in 7th grade being mean to each other, check it out. I think you'll find a lot of help. Thanks, Sheri.
I want you to know that I am so excited to be offering the PGK Insider. This is a place that I really want you to participate because we have a community here, and that is that we are all together. We're not doing this parenting journey all by ourselves. I want this to be a place where you can find solid answers, and you don't have to agree with me. That's perfectly fine. My job here is not to tell you what to do. My job is to give you solid answers so that I can help you parent your way, not my way. Just go to my website, meekerparenting.com, and sign up today. You won't be sorry.